I'm not where I'm supposed to be. I'm going
Hey,
in
I'm Danielle
circles,
Davies, and you're
going
listening to
in
Roar, a
circles.
show that
I
amplifies
should
the
get
voices of women
away
breaking
from
barriers, leading
here.
change, and
There's a
making real
better
impact.
place for me,
Keep listening for bold
better
ideas and
place for
stories that
me.
inspire you to
Trying to
find your
play my
voice and make some
symphony,
noise.
but there's so much.
Hi, everybody. This is Danielle Davies with the Roar Podcast. Today, I'll be speaking with Lisa Kinsella, founder of LUWI, and Samantha Feingold, product coordinator and educator of LUWI. LUWI is an internal liner for contraception and STI protection. And possibly my favorite part is that the name is an acronym for Let Us Wear It. There's no better time for women to have autonomy over their bodies and agency over our choices. So I'm really excited. Let's talk to Lisa and Sam. Welcome.
Hi, Danielle. Great to be here.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. I'm excited. Part of the reason I did this podcast is because people, women in particular, advocate for change in so many different ways, and we advocate for ourselves. And whether we're comedians or we're politicians or we're authors or we're app developers, there's so many ways we can help women go forward, live our best lives. So I'm trying to talk to people from all different spaces. But I love this. And Lisa, I would love if you could tell me the mission of LUWI and how it stands out in the realm of personal safety for women.
Absolutely. So we are, LUWI stands for advocacy, right? It's all about advocacy because advocacy is personal choice. It's personal protection. It's safety on your terms, right? So this product is essential. I mean, not just because there isn't another option on the market for women. It's crazy how this aisle at CVS and Target is completely outdated. I mean, we haven't seen another category that is equally as stagnant over 60 years, right? And so it's so important today to be able to bring this forth and to be able to perpetuate advocacy, personal choice, safety, all of those. That's at our core.
Absolutely. And it's interesting too, because, I know you have a daughter, I have a daughter, and just the things they bring to the table are a whole new era of things. And it's like this thing is completely missing.
Yeah, I mean, condoms put women in this space of a role that requires women to rely on someone else. That is not a powerful space. And we've got this generation. I mean, you, Danielle, I'm raising this, Sam is this, of women that are equal. It's this egalitarianism everywhere. They're equal at home, at work, at school. Intimately, we need that as well. They're expecting that, right? This isn't, my daughter is shocked that 1974 was the first time women could have a bank account, right? And that's the situation we're in, where we want this next generation. I mean, I guess we're looking for the younger Gen Zs that are not yet, in college, and the Gen A's to come to this sexual health aisle and recognize there is an option for them. There was never a time where there wasn't an option that enabled them to have advocacy.
Exactly. And you know what? We should actually jump ahead to exactly what it is, right? Because it's a female liner, it's different, and it's not just for females, it's a liner.
Right. It's an STI preventing, contraceptive, and hormone-free, latex-free liner. So it's essentially it's the opposite of a condom, right? It forms a second skin on the inside, and it's designed for women. However, it is loved by men, and so it is very versatile because you can use it on it or in it. So we have this excitement from the community. We have this excitement from the non-binary folks, right? Everybody wants to have agency. They want an option. They want to be able to say, hey, I've got me. I'm in charge of me. And that's what LUWI enables, right? It's not just for a woman. It's not just for on the inside. It can be put on a penis to be inserted inside anally or vaginally.
Yeah, I love the us and let us wear it because it really provides that agency to everyone. And there's so many options to have protection and pleasure. So,
And protection, my son's going to love this, but I shipped him off to college with a box of condoms, and I don't want to have to ship that same thing with my daughter because it puts her in the position of saying, hey, can you? That's why I love the name. Let us wear it. Like, it's so
Yeah.
clever. It's such a good name. But
We
okay.
can't,
But
yeah, that it really is limiting women's control. A
yeah,
condom just inherent in that product is there's a limitation of women's control. And that's not okay. I mean, especially today, just what you're talking about in today's environment, this is essential. I mean, we can't find another category in the world where there is such stagnancy. You know, we have our daughters, the only option they have is the same option that our mothers had.
isn't it crazy too? And Sam, it's got to be crazy from your perspective because Lisa and I are, we have kids approaching your age, right? So for us, and I don't know how you feel about this, Lisa, because you've been so involved in it, but for me, I'm like, this is so cool. This is so great. Look what we can do. It's like the same way I probably felt about the internet when it first came out. I just, it's something new and exciting. But for our girls and younger generations, they're expecting this. This is what they've come into. I mean, my daughter does not back down, and I'm so proud of that because she and why should she? Why should she? I mean, yes, we encourage her to listen to us, but we encourage her to speak up and to speak out and to have an opinion and a voice. And this is giving those girls that voice. And some of them may not even have been aware that they weren't possibly going to have it. And now it's going to be available.
Exactly. I mean, exactly. You know, Danielle, I think, I mean, you and I, Sam doesn't remember this wonderfully, but you and I do. When we first learned to shave our legs, we had to use our dad's shaving cream.
Yes.
We didn't have a product for us. And of course, I mean, Sam would, go to Target, whatever. She would never consider using her dad's. There's a product made for her skin. That's the same situation. They're like, how preposterous that there wouldn't be an option. And that's where this next generation is going to be when LUWI's on the market.
Which is awesome. And Sam, we keep mentioning you without asking. Can you tell us how you got involved in your own journey and what drew you to LUWI?
Yes, I would love to, Danielle. So when I was an undergrad, I was pre-med, majoring in bio, minoring in ethics, and I was working in a fertility clinic for about 2 years. And I learned a lot while I was there. It was interesting seeing how much work needed to be done before people got to the doctor's office and how much education needs to be done about one's body and understanding that a doctor, it's just not feasible for them to provide in a consult about how your body works, how to protect yourself, how reproduction works. But the passion for reproductive health was very, very apparent to me. And I ended up working for a period underwear company called Pure Rosie, which is actually how I met Lisa. And even before this, like when I was in college, I was meeting friends in my sorority who thought that they could just take Plan B once a month and that would cover them. So that kind of just blew my mind of how there's such a lack of education and people really need to be, harnessed with the knowledge, the power that is knowledge and such incredible options that they can have control of and understanding of to protect themselves. So having that, Lisa, and understanding and seeing like, yeah, why isn't there an option for women? As someone who has a latex allergy, why is everything latex? Why is everything latex when women have 3 times the risk of a latex allergy and latex is so irritating? Why are condoms constricting and why is LUWI not accessible already? Like that is just, there was so much that just made sense meeting Lisa and feeling the material and being like, wow, like this is going to be big and something that I want to be a part of.
And we need more people like you in the world. But
Yeah,
also,
awesome.
you just reminded me too when you said like a lot of people would use Plan B. And can you guys address the idea that some women will say, okay, well, you know what? I take the pill. Like the pill works for me. I pop it in my mouth every day. I've taken it for years and that works for me.
Yeah, well, we see a big trend of the women moving away from hormone-based contraceptive due to the side effects, right? We're seeing that. But we also are seeing this incredible increase in STIs, right? It's 1 in 4 today, and over half are impacting 15 to 24-year-olds. So Gen Zs are really hit with this. And it's just something that they're going to experience if they don't have an STI prevention option. And we also see that 62% of young men are refusing to wear condoms. And it is 62% of young men, 18 to 24 are not wearing condoms because of the desensitization, because they're not able to maintain an erection with a latex condom. I mean, as Sam mentioned, there are many faults with condoms, right? And latex is not a transmitter, it's an insulator. So yes, it is dramatically desensitizing. So we understand that, and we need to give everybody an option.
So I would love to add on to this. Something else that I learned in the fertility clinic was that chlamydia is known as the silent tube killer. And this was something that a lot of my friends, or I feel like the average individual who doesn't work at a fertility clinic might not realize, is that chlamydia is often asymptomatic in women. And undetected, it can cause scarring and damage the fallopian tubes, which connect your ovary to your uterus. So a lot of these women needed fertility treatments because they didn't know that they had chlamydia for a few years. They were finally treated, and then they had this blockage in their tubes and needed IVF and fertility treatments to be able to have a child. So I think that, using a contraceptive method that works for you is what's so important. But there's also this element of needing to protect ourselves from STIs and understanding that not everything's asymptomatic. Like, you should be getting tested annually or even more often than that, depending on what risk factors you may have. And so often things are asymptomatic that could be especially as a woman, so damaging to your health, to your future fertility. Like, having this protection is so important, because just because your partner doesn't have symptoms or you don't have symptoms doesn't mean that there's not this potential damage that is really affecting you. So whether you're taking the pill and using another method to have protected sex, such as LUWI or something like that, like, it's just so important to be protecting you from STIs, because it's not just having to take an antibiotic or some sort of medication. It's real potential impact.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. And you're probably familiar with Evie, Danielle. EVVY.com.
Oh, yeah.
It's run by Priyanka Jain. Yeah. So she is awesome. And she is, the whole premise of Evie is to protect the vaginal biome, to understand, that's the largest system in our whole body. And when there is dysbiosis or a pH imbalance in the vaginal biome, a lot of things can happen. Depression, not just increased STI rates or yeast infection or bacterial vaginosis or UTIs, but depression, precursors for ovarian cancer, right? All of this stuff. And the quickest way to change the vaginal biome pH is with semen. Semen has a 7.0 pH and the vaginal biome is 3.5. So the vaginal biome is more acidic. And so immediately when something more alkaline enters, it's going to change that balance. And that's where things become ripe for infection and virus transmission, even if you're in a monogamous relationship, right? So that's what we're learning. We have, with this AI technology, Priyanka Jain is able to really identify all of these details about the vaginal biome.
And it's crazy. And it's fun, when I was asking the question about the pill, because I remember back in my college days, it was AIDS. AIDS was the big prevention. So we were schooled in a different way in terms of, like, our fear factor was up. I remember them passing along something and you were like, now every single person has like color on their hands, like a germ. And that's how,
oh my gosh.
We were raised
what an
in
exercise. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I went to a Catholic college, so could you imagine?
Oh, but yeah. Well, the shame, it's the shame based,
you just
right?
were like, you're going down. That's it. That's all there was to it. But sorry, I'm distracted now. But so we had that fear factor built in, and so you thought about more than pregnancy. You thought condoms, you thought the pill for pregnancy, and that's all you thought about. You thought there were AIDS and pregnancy, and these are the things that you have to worry about, because the education just wasn't there for the other sexually transmitted diseases. I mean, HPV, now we've got Gardasil, but prior to
Well,
that, that's
Danielle, I
most
mean, the rate was
prevalent.
different. It was different when
Yeah.
you were in college. I mean, the rate of STIs was 1 in 62.
Well, probably because we're
Now
all
it's 1
scared
in
to death.
4. Well, yeah, I
Right.
mean, it was just a different world then,
Totally,
right?
totally. So, but I feel like once there was and thank God, but once there was any kind of way to slow AIDS down and go into remission and stuff like that, it was like people had a false relaxation because they
Yeah.
weren't thinking about all these other things. And obviously I'm so glad for that. But I remember when my kids got Gardasil, and even my pediatrician is explaining to me that HPV is the leading cause of cervical cancer, and that 95% of people have one strain or the other and I don't know if that is an accurate statistic at this point, but it was so prevalent that, and a lot of times, Sam, like you were saying, it's unseen, it's silent. So, I mean, some
Yeah.
strains aren't and some
And
strains are.
and the risk factor increases when there's a second STI. So if the strain for HPV exists and then is activated by another, and then another STI comes into play, that's where the real challenge is. That's where the dysbiosis happens. That's where you have a greater proliferation of this bacteria and this virus, the virus transmission.
Lisa, I'm totally changing gears here, but
Yeah.
you just said dysbiosis 2 times in the past few minutes. And let me ask you, what is your history before you started LUWI? Because a lot of times I notice that when I talk to women, I love men. I have a husband, I have a son, I have a father. I think they're awesome. But I notice a different type of entry into any field. So a lot of times men just seem to happen along. I just happen to become president of the company, and that's great. Awesome for them. But for women, it seems like you sense a problem, you sense, like you said, an absence of something in the field, and you decide it's going to take me, if no one else has done it, I'm going to have to do it myself. So can you tell me how you got to the point where you're saying this about the vaginal biome? I mean, is this your history?
Yeah, no, I mean, Priyanka, I'm a sponge. So I learned from all of our tremendous cadre of launch partners. Evie is one of them, and I'm a sponge. I mean, I just learned. So I learned all of that from a couple of calls with Priyanka Jane. She's fantastic. Prior to LUWI, I was raising my kids, coaching soccer and selling enterprise SaaS to CIOs. I mean, I was on planes, I was giving presentations and, leading a technical team, and right, it was enterprise software. I mean, it wasn't
But
very
it wasn't.
sexy, but I mean, that's how it was. And and then I went through these life-changing experiences, right? With these 2 young kids, I was all of a sudden diagnosed in the same week with breast cancer, and I filed for divorce.
Ugh.
And it was hard. I mean, it was really hard. And what I learned later is it was really a gift. And when I came out, years later, of those complete shifts in life as I knew it, I went online and I thought, okay, well, I had hormone receptive breast cancer, so I can't take hormonal contraception. So what should I do? And when I went online, I saw that there were no options. The only option was for a man to use a condom. And I thought, wow, this is really kind of crazy. And that's when I also saw STI rates. And I thought, geez, I got 2 really big problems here. And the only option I have is to rely on a man to wear a condom. This just doesn't make sense. So that was in my mind for a long time, as a hobby. It's kind of I would read up on it while I was doing my life, right? And selling enterprise software. And then one day, I came home from work, and my son, who was playing with his dinosaurs, he said to our babysitter, "Oh, hi, Mommy. Christina, can you give Mommy a hug for me?" He was so busy with his toys. And I stood there and I said, "Hey, mister, you come hug your mommy, because some things are way too important to outsource." And in that moment, I don't know what happened. It was like Shazam, almighty ISIS, 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 right? It was this aha moment. I thought, yeah, some things are way too important to outsource. And if not me, who? If not now, when? I'm going to do something about it.
And I'm sure everybody's got something like that, but those moments, and it's interesting too, because not everybody that I speak to is a mom and not everybody wants to be, but if you are, sometimes you have those moments where you look at your kid and you're like, well, I guess I'm gonna have to do this thing. I don't
That's
necessarily
exactly
want
what
to.
happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's that like now? I know you've got this team and you guys are, you're going full throttle. We're hoping to have this in college campuses in August. But what
Yeah.
have been some of the challenges you faced as a team, and how are you managing them in the world? I mean, there are a lot of different FemTech companies starting up. And the awesome thing I think about FemTech is like, there is so much room for growth. We're just at the tip of the iceberg in
Yeah,
terms
I
of
totally
women's
agree.
health and the studies that are going into women's health. So it can be really exciting, but it can also, I imagine for you, feel extraordinarily frustrating because all of these different places and great ideas and these women are all trying to get the same piece of the pie. And it's a very small pie right now.
Well, I think that, I can share a quote. I was in an event years ago with Rahm Emanuel. He's the former mayor of Chicago. He was the mayor for 10 years. He's now the ambassador to Japan. And he said, he was speaking to all of us, and he said, when you're running a startup, you have to be idealistic enough to know that what you're doing matters more than anything else, and tough enough to get it done. And that's where we are. I mean, that's just where we are. And I've been so fortunate to have Sam and Marissa and Rachel and Leslie, all of these people come forward to help support who believe the same thing, who are so invested and excited about this vision and bringing it to fruition. So that helps, on hard days, to have that support from the team. So I'm so grateful for the team. But in terms of challenges, you dig in, you're gritty, you just get it done, you find a way, you just keep going forward. The biggest challenge, though, that is so tough is the fundraising, right? I mean, if we were all, white alpha males, I mean, shoot, this would be on the market already. We'd be, heading for exit. I mean, this would be amazing, but we're not. And so I think starting this journey in January of 23 was probably not the easiest time to raise, no matter who you were. And it still remains a little bit challenging for most, but I think it's harder for us. And what I've learned is that when you're doing something so important, so revolutionary, so needed, so challenging of the status quo, you are met with a lot of doubters, a lot of dissenters, a lot of naysayers. And if you're doing something that maybe doesn't much really matter, you don't have those obstacles. You don't have that brick wall in front of you all the time. And people aren't threatened, right? I mean, I'll give you a really good example. You know that period app that they just raised $200 million. It's a period app. It's run by two brothers.
Right.
Two brothers. Okay, two guys
Right.
running this period app company. And they just raised $200 million. I mean, Sam, what can we do? Wow. And the valuation is over $1 billion. And guess what? There's over 1,000 period apps in that space. 1,000. And so they're not, it's not a threat. It's not life-changing. It's a me too. It's kind of like, oh, it's a copycat. It's a copycat. And that is safer for investors, copycatting.
Oh, of course.
Right.
Can I ask you, what is some of the dissent? Just, I mean, if you can give us an example, and if you can't, that's okay too. It just seems so, maybe it's because Sam and I have talked about it before, or I've been reading about LUWI, but like, it seems very obvious.
Well, I mean, yes. And they say, you know what, this seems so obvious. There's a reason it hasn't been done before.
What?
Yeah, that's what we get a lot. Or, yeah, I don't know if there's going to be adoption. Yeah, I don't know if there's demand. Yeah, there's so many condoms, over 180 condoms on the market. Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's room for another option. Mm. Like, this is what it's just, yeah, it's really interesting. And that's where I've come to this space of, wow, when you're doing something so impactful, you're going to be faced with doubters. When you're doing something that doesn't much matter, it's not life changing, it's okay. People can flow like a river. Ah, sure, that sounds cool. Right, I'll invest in that. Right. So it has been challenging. Although I have to say, the funding, we have been successful, right? Funding has come in. This summer, and particularly, we had just finished our first our tooling to be able to make LUWI. This was in July, and we were so excited. So the first LUWIs were going to come off the line, and these were going to be for our FDA testing, and we were so excited. But I was so stressed because I didn't have money for the invoice. And it was, pressure. And then I met this, I'll call her an angel, Desiree Vargas Wrigley. She runs Josephine Collective out of Chicago, and it's a women's fund. And it's a syndicate of all women, put money in. And we were chosen. So was it a huge check? No, but it was the timing of that check felt huge to me and Sam and Marissa. I mean, we were just like, okay, it's Christmas, thank God, So it's little things like that that just buoy us to the next, right?
Yeah, and you guys did some crowdfunding as well, which is kind of, I think, a unique way to go about it, especially because it's literally talking about women's agency. I mean, what better way to go about it than women to have agency over where they want to put their money, or anybody to have agency over where they want to put their money. But especially because not a lot of lay people are necessarily walking around talking about their investments and their investment strategies all the time. Some people are. I wish I were one of them, but I'm not. So how did that help, or how did that feel to know that like individuals were giving because they believe so much in it?
Yeah, that was really exciting. We ran that for 90 days. And I mean, Sam did a lot of work to support that and to make that a success. We were grateful. We were grateful to reach so many people, and exactly that, for folks to say, hey, I don't have the funds to be an accredited investor, but I want to have some equity in this company. I want to see it successful, and I want to have that success too. So yeah, that financial equity, I think that was really fun to be able to provide to people.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I wish that that I saw more of that. And hopefully we will see more of things like that as we go forward in, just continuing to empower women. Let's talk a little bit about the collaborations and the partnerships that you've put together to kind of bring LUWI to the marketplace. And I know, Sam, you're part of this, right?
Yes. I am the product coordinator and campus growth manager for like education on campus, all stuff like that, which is really exciting. And in terms of developing partnerships, just having met people in the space, like they are so excited for LUWI. And honestly, this was my same reaction when I met Lisa. First of all, when she said it was latex free, I was like, okay, that's important for me. I'm glad that that's been established. But when she told me that there wasn't an over-the-counter option for women, I was just like, I like couldn't believe that. Like it hadn't even occurred to me that there wasn't, this hormone-free over-the-counter option for STI protection and contraceptive for women. And when we talk about that to launch partners, to college campuses, health educators that are handing out contraceptives on campus, or even I went to this conference with the Sexual Health Alliance, and I met so many launch partners there who are passionate about sexual health education. And it's just really incredible, the excitement, the demand that we can already see from all these different connections that we've made and people who are eager to help us amplify and support us as we launch.
The whole strategy to grow launch partners, what we're calling launch partners. These are folks that are in the space or in a related space or complementary to LUWI that want to promote and support and drive demand and awareness, was due to lack of funding. right? When you have a really, really tight budget, you have to look to others to help you. And so that's what we've done. We've said, hey, how you've got, 20,000, 50,000 followers on Instagram. Well, we don't. How can we share LUWI with you and hear your thoughts? And that's been really exciting to share LUWI and to get the feedback from them saying, just as Sam is relaying, wow, this is amazing. Can I help you? How can I help you? I want to talk about this. I want to spread the word. I think that's really what has burgeoned in that space for us. It started out with a couple of conversations, and then we thought, wow, geez, there's a lot of these people that want to help us. I think one category of those launch partners that's really impactful are the sexual health educators. There are a lot of sexual health educators, and most of them are third parties providing sexual education to universities, right? So the universities are contracting out to them. And these folks are so eager to have a health equity option, something new, something fun, something exciting to talk about. So they're offering for free to add LUWI as a sample to their events and to add LUWI in their programming as they, speak to all these kids. And that in itself, sexual education has really shifted too, because it used to be like, Danielle, we remember when it was, reactive.
Oh, totally.
Somebody on the lacrosse team did something on Saturday night, and all of a sudden the university's under scrutiny and they got to call in the sex educators.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
it was a
now
different
it's
world.
flipped. It's preventative, it's proactive. It's, hey, you guys got to know this stuff before you get your dorm assignment, your resident hall assignment, right? And that's what's so exciting, because there are so many of those folks that are lining up to talk about LUWI and to help us sample and promote.
I was just going to say, so it's not available yet, but they're able to get their hands on like a sample.
We
Is
have
that
shared
how-
some samples so that they can at least talk about it and kind of, lay the groundwork for when we do launch.
Gotcha. And what
Yeah.
is the feedback of people? Because I know Sam actually walked me through it before. She showed me. What's
Yeah.
the feedback from people who are actually seeing it? It's one thing to hear it. I know on the website you've got the little packet, like you just want to pick it up and just be like, here it is. Here it is. It's available. What's the feedback of people who've actually kind of, for lack of better words, seen it in action, but just gotten to see,
So
oh, okay, here we go.
yeah, this is our my blurred background is going to be
Okay.
difficult. Our sparkle vulva demonstration model. This is LUWI, and the other thing, I have so many favorite parts to LUWI. One of them is that this additional surface area is being protected on the vulva. And when Lisa told me, like, yeah, condoms don't, completely protect that surface area from HSV 1 and 2, which is herpes, and HPV, I was like, what do you mean? Like everyone is like, put on a condom and you're fine. Having this additional surface area protected is huge. And that I think is really exciting to people, because that's something that's not known, that there's this room for additional protection from those STIs.
Yeah, feedback's been phenomenal, Danielle. I mean, everywhere we go, people want not only LUWI, they want to know when they can get it, but they also want the LUWI Sparkle Vulva. They also want to purchase this to be able to demonstrate to their students, to their campus, to their, high schoolers, right? So that was kind of a happy accident. Here, we just made this LUWI Sparkle Vulva to help our team. We first only made 4 of them. And then one was stolen at a meeting. I don't know. And so we had to make 4 more. But it is our plan to be able to scale the production of LUWI Sparkle Vulva, because we've already received pre-orders for over 700 of these. So clearly, the vulva models that are on the market today are really bad. They're very clinical and difficult to use to educate and kind of engage young people. So that's been exciting.
And just out of curiosity, and I'm just throwing this out there, but we're talking about educating at the college level. Are you at some point hoping to educate in high school and even grade school? I mean, frankly, I feel like you should be doing that all the time anyway as a family, and just talking, again, much to my children's mortification, but I could just picture me walking around with one of those and being like, let me show you this.
Yeah.
But are there goals to roll out to younger, throughout the high school, educate the public education system, or is the sweet spot is college for you?
No, yeah, it's absolutely high school too, because that awareness has to start. I think that's going to help drive more success when the kids get to college, helping them understand what it is and be aware of it. Fifth grade is when they begin that sex education. In fact, just today I got an article. It was about Representative Rachel Hood. She's in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and she just came out and said that Michigan is going to completely dramatically increase the amount of condom distribution. And she's going to increase sex education. And it's not just going to be abstinence focused, right? Which is so crazy. Right. So all of a sudden you've got 600 public high schools in the state of Michigan and another 500 fifth through eighth grade public schools in the state of Michigan. So now you've got 1,100 schools where all of a sudden they're going to increase the condom distribution and the education. Well, guess what? The head of Chicago Public Schools in Chicago has already told us that she's already placed her order for LUWI, her pre-order for LUWI and for LUWI Sparkle Vulvas, because she says, I can't be discriminatory. I can't just hand out condoms. Condoms are predicated on the male anatomy. I've got to have health equity. I've got to have something that is not only for women, but for LGBTQ, for transgender, for non-binary. And she said, and that's what LUWI is. So that's what we're seeing is happening. Just, the state of Michigan is a good example of where we'd be able to partner with them and be able to provide LUWI from the fifth graders. Now, are they using it or are they just showing it? Right? That's fine. The sampling is going to be a tremendous, challenge, but it's going
just
to be
the
really
awareness.
exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it's important to be aware of all the options early. I think that's a huge part of education is understanding what options are out there for when you're ready. And honestly, like when I'm on college campuses, whether it's to talk to the health educator or the person who purchases the contraceptives for campus, or whether I'm visiting my sister and talking to her friends, like the students I bump into that I'm talking to about LUWI are so excited to have someone who isn't projecting shame or stigma onto something that's a normal part of life, that it's only weird because society has made it weird or made it feel shameful. Like I had done a TEDx talk at Emory on the stigma projected onto girls around their periods. And I was like, this is something that we're not choosing. And yet society makes you feel embarrassed and shameful about it. And if we just didn't act that way, it wouldn't be so stressful when going through puberty and these changes and all of that. So I think that a huge part of just having LUWI and being able to answer questions and educate these individuals on it, like they're dying for someone to talk to about, okay, like they're like, this might be a stupid question. I'm like, there's no stupid questions. Like I want you to have the information that you need and know how to use the options available for you. And I think that that's so beneficial.
And I think too, it's interesting because while we're working at, while Sam, you're focusing on the education of younger women, I think a lot of it is the re-education of older women, and so that we're comfortable talking about this and, comfortable having these talks with our sons, our daughters, their friends that are over. I mean, maybe not all the time, but some of the time, to make yourself accessible and so that people have confidence and agency and all the good things we know there can be around this topic. So it doesn't have to be this, like, again, I'm thinking about my own college experience and going to a Catholic school, which I had never gone to before. I just coincidentally, this college was Catholic and I was there. And I remember being like, this is a bizarre sex ed conversation because it was basically like, just don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Just don't. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, like we have two options. You either do or you don't. So it's interesting. And
yeah, I think enabling, like, one of our launch partners, Karis Dennison, she's out of Marin County. She's a tremendous sex educator and youth advocate educator. And she has shared that her whole mission, and we love this too, this is part of LUWI, is to help young people make more decisions that end in joy and honor versus guilt and shame and regret. And that's what LUWI is all about. Make your choice, but protect the vaginal biome, right? Protect yourself. And by the way, hey, it feels good to him too, right? That's what it's all about.
It feels It
I-
feels great for everyone. I was also going to add that our other launch partner, Dr. Ina Park, specializes in STIs. And the thing about that lesson that you had in college was it was very shame driven. Like, yes, you want to be protected from STIs, but without putting a shame and stigma on it. Like that fear-based intention, I think can be approached in much more productive ways as well.
100%. And I think you are right at the forefront. And I am so grateful that there are people like you out in the world. Let me ask you a question. Some people have these ideas, Lisa, like you said, there was kind of like a flipping point, like that aha moment.
Mhm.
What do you tell people who are whatever it is, however they want to speak up and kind of find their place to help humanity, but women in particular, what advice would you have for somebody who's just starting to think, has the seed of an idea, whatever that idea may be? Because it can be a scary thing. Like you said, for as much love as you're receiving, there are people who are like, what, why bother? What do we need this for? So do you have any words of advice for them?
Well, I think I would go back to what I shared earlier from that event where I attended that Rahm Emanuel spoke. When it felt in that moment he was talking to me. You've got to be idealistic enough to believe that what you're doing matters more than anything else. And you've got to be tough enough to make it happen. And so you'll find a way. You'll find your grit. If that's the place you're coming from, you will find your grit and you will overcome any obstacle that is put in front of you. You absolutely will. And I know some people will, if you have doubt, I don't know what to do. Well, I don't know what the antidote of that is. I never had an ounce of doubt. I still don't. It's like a true fact. It just hasn't happened yet. That's it. Now it's hard. It's been hard. And, there have been some times where I've cried, right? And stamp my foot. This is why, but, I've never had any doubt.
Have there that's just what I was going to say. Have there been times where you've second guessed it, but you've never had any doubt? How long have you been in this process? How long have you
Well,
been
that's a long
maintaining
time.
that
Yeah.
feeling?
Yeah. That aha moment with my son, that was years ago. And then it took years to create this prototype and do all the research and understand the substrate and figure out the material and where was I going to launch and how was I, all of that took years. And then we launched this because we couldn't launch at the time in the United States. It was too costly. We chose to do a proof of concept. Me and my, shadow self here. My clone. No, anyway, I went to London and launched a proof of concept in London in 2017 and had to shut it down a year later because it was just too much travel. It was too hard. My life. Who runs a startup? It's hard enough, let alone, plus 6 hours, like crazy silly.
Yeah, weren't you also, still working full time?
I was still working full time. My 2 kids, I don't know if I was coaching
Superwoman.
soccer still at that time. Yeah, it was crazy. I had to put it on hold. Cancer came back. So that was a little bit of a challenge there. And so, radiation and all the things and healing and whatever. And life, it was busy. So it was on hold for about 5.5 years. That proof of concept, and then it was kind of in these bankers boxes in my basement for 5.5
Wow.
years, and then Roe v. Wade, June 22, Roe v. Wade, which was the day after my birthday, June 24th, 2022 is the day after my birthday, and I thought, that's it, this is my signal. This is my lightning bolt again. Thank you. How many lightning bolts do I need?
Right.
Yeah. And that was June of 22. So that's when I said, that's it. I got to do it. So January of 23 is when so it's been 22 months.
The last 2 women that I've spoken to for this podcast, that is their date of no return. It's interesting.
Wow.
One of them
Wow,
created,
galvanizing date. Yeah.
yeah, she created the first private by default period tracker. So it's a whole new system. Like if you're on your phone, even if you get a new phone, it doesn't come with you. I mean, it's that locked into just
Secure.
you. And that she said it was Roe v. Wade and she was out for her 10-year anniversary and she just was like so furious. And so it's interesting what comes out of, you know, your spark, what started it. It had nothing to do with what you were doing. Like you have a career, you're a soccer coach, you're a mom, you're doing this, you're doing that. And all of a sudden it's like these things, you know, they just enter the consciousness and you're like, you know what, I'm going to have to, it's like a little seed. And now look where we're at. So it's very exciting. I'm so excited for you guys. And this is rolling out. LUWI is going to be on college campuses in the spring.
August. Well,
Summer.
maybe we'll see. We'll see what happens with funding if we can, you know, get out that soon with maybe a soft launch. But yes, August back to school. That's a big market, right? Everybody's going back to school, and that's when the universities are purchasing, you know, their condoms for the year. So that's when they're going to be purchasing LUWI for the first semester, and then they purchase again in January. So yeah.
So
That'll be
what
fun.
can listeners do at this point? So your crowdfunding's closed. What
Yes.
can listeners do to kind of support you? Because I'm sure even I wrote an email about you guys before, and even then I was getting responses back, and it, you know, people were like, "What is this thing? This is great."
That's so awesome. Thank you,
It
Danielle.
was
Thank
so
you.
awesome because I was
Yeah.
like, people are reading these newsletters, and it's not just my mom. So that makes me feel better.
Yeah, that's great. I love it.
So
Good
what
for
can you know? What can people do?
Yeah, I mean, follow us at getluwi.com,
Okay.
GETLUWI, right? At getluwi.com. At
Yeah.
getluwi is our Instagram, and then getluwi.com is our website. So there's a newsletter. You can sign up for that to be the first to know when we launch. We are going to run some promos with some merch when, you know, for the first folks that order when we're available. And then, you know, follow us on Instagram or LinkedIn, right? Or I think even Facebook is a good way to to understand what we're doing. And yeah, we're getting there. Stay tuned.
You're getting there. It's going to be there. And I just was thinking, I'm friends with a few authors and they're always like, ask your librarian for my book if it's not covered. Can people ask at their schools once they go back in the fall? Can they say, hey, do you guys
I was
have
about
LUWI?
to say that. Yeah, I was going to say if you go to a college or university or if you work for a college and university and think that LUWI should be available, I would love to be connected. Ask for LUWI, reach out to me. I'm happy to reach out to the university myself. Whether whether it's a school or a launch partner, like I'm so happy to connect and answer any questions that one may have. So just reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you all.
Sam has a running list of the first universities we're going to be rolling out to because they've reached out to her. So yeah, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Well, you guys, thank you so much for your time. I cannot thank you enough. This was exciting. And honestly, it's like the best thing that's happened all week. For all you listeners out there, I will have all of their contact information at the top of the show notes. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too.
Thanks.